Some of you feel like people don't show up for you. But the truth is, you never gave them a chance to. Not because they didn't care, but because you never included yourself in the relationship to begin with. And this doesn't mean that certain people aren't inconsiderate. And, some of your relationships aren't one-sided. But sometimes that one-sidedness may be a product of how you have chosen to show up. And we're going to talk about it. Stay tuned. Guys, welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah, and sometimes as I am doing the slogan, my mind it's like a little kid. It's like a little Isaiah comes to me and he like shows me something while I'm working. He's like, hey, look, I drew this picture. Or, hey, I want a cupcake. And as I'm talking, it's like, oh, guys, welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, have a cupcake, stay elevated. So there are definitely some thoughts that want to kind of intercept, and I think it's so funny. So I think a couple of times I'm gonna just try and just let myself be and see whatever it is that comes out. If it's cohesive and it makes sense. But if you've been here long enough, you know the slogan, you know what it is when we come here. But if you're new here, the slogan is always, guys, welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah. That's the actual slogan. That's been the slogan for the past 8 years. But sometimes your boy just has thoughts. But hope you guys are doing well. We are winding out April, and we're about to step into May. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Yeah, I think it's Mental Health Awareness Month, right? I'm pretty sure it is. Like I say, you should know this. You're a coach. Yeah. But every day is Mental Health Awareness. At least for me, because I think there's so much that comes up on any given day. That's just really necessary to pay attention to. And also it's really cool to notice how your body changes in seasons, what needs it has. So for me, I'm kind of like a hybrid, because I can be a creature of habit, and then sometimes my body just deviates and is like, hey, sometimes I listen to music all the time. I'm always listening to music, always playing music when I work, when I write, when I drive, go to the gym, when I run, when I walk. And then lately, my body has just not wanted music. It's wanted more silence. And so now I've been working out with no music, just listening to my breath and just having this space, and listening to nothing is really cool. Even on my drives, I've been either in silence or throwing on a podcast. Like, it's really cool to just pay attention to what your body needs at different times. Like, your sleep may change when you decide you want to go to the gym, what you want to consume. And I noticed that my body kind of operates in this very weird pattern or clock. And it's fun. It's really dope. And I think because of that, this episode has been born. This idea of feeling left out in your relationships, but overlooking that you may be leaving yourself out, literally. And I had moments of this understanding. I think when you are the kind of person that, first of all, people pleasing is a form of manipulation. And I know people try to say, well, yeah, it's not harmful, it's not this. Resentment is harmful, guys. Just because you're not physically harming a person does not mean that resentment is not harmful, and it doesn't rupture relationships. It doesn't make you spiteful. It doesn't make you feel a certain way towards connections. And sometimes people aren't even aware, right? So when we think about, and I've used discernment in this space too, where You know, somebody is always like, I'm such a nice person. I'm such a giver. I'm such a good person. Um, I just love everyone and all that. It's like, I think there are some times you or we as people, it feels weird to say, hey, I'm such a good person. I'm such a good person. It's weird to say, you know, I give to everybody and everybody just always screws me over. It's interesting because there's data behind that. There's information. There's a subtext. You know, to the untrained ear and eye, it seems like a very Mother Teresa thing. But when you listen a little bit more, it becomes this ask of, what are you doing it for? You know, what are you doing it for? Who is it for? It's kind of like the people who, um, you know, they see a displaced person on the street and they walk up to them and they give them a full box of pizza. It's like Isaiah, pizza, that's very specific. Because I'm thinking of a video in my head where I saw it, where it's like somebody walks up to someone who is, they don't have a home and, they're unkept, they're disheveled. Obviously, they've been, transient for a long time. And they give this person a pizza. The person is emotional, and the post goes viral, right? And they get all these accolades of like, oh, you're such a good person, looking out for that individual, whatever. But it's like, what would it look like to just giving that person food off camera? Why did other people need to see that? And also, let's think about it. To disrupt or exploit someone else for your praise, what is that? How honest is that? How good of a person are you? You know? And this ties into this idea of people pleasing, but also sometimes when we feel left out of our relationships. And why do we feel left out? How did that happen? And people pleasing ties into this because sometimes people don't realize that, you will develop in resentment for a person. Resentment is the result of needs going unmet. As whenever I mention resentment in a podcast episode, I think I will always give the understanding of what resentment is, just so you can hold on to that. So if you've been around for a long time, you've heard me talk about resentment, and I always naturally say, hey, resentment is the result of needs going unmet. Envy is a response to someone having things that you yourself don't have. We conflate jealousy and envy, right? Jealousy is usually possession of a relationship or a person. Envy is usually the desire to have what someone else does not. It can be qualities in who they are as a person. It can be things that they do, right? And, a lot of times when we are continually overgiving in relationships, or we are in one-sided imbalanced relationships, we can we'll feel rejected or kind of uncomfortable about somebody's ability to show up for themselves or sustain their own commitments to themselves. Yes, some people are very selfish, very inconsiderate, and they move through the world like they are the only ones that have needs. That is true. But then there might be moments where we perceive somebody as being inconsiderate and selfish, and that's because of something we have been doing. And this is very interesting because it popped in my head this week. I was chilling, journaling, and I was just thinking about historically what has been the requirement to sustain a lot of my connections over time. Sometimes when you are showing up for everyone, you got to look at the history of that. How did that become? How did you become the person that was always holding the anchor for everybody else? Where was that taught? Okay, where was that ingrained? And I do hear that a lot more women do it than men. That is true because women have been taught to be emotionally responsible in life from a very young age. If you look at little boys and little girls, the toys that they're given, from a gender role, girls are given baby dolls. They're given kitchen sets, Barbie houses. So everything is functioned around aesthetic, but also accountability or responsibility to someone else. So you have a baby doll, you're already responsible for something or someone. You have a kitchen set, you are now learning how to cook and take care of other people. Boys, historically, stereotypically, are given GI Joes, right? Given construction trucks or tool sets. None of that requires being emotionally invested in another person. It's all destruction, control, or mechanics, right? No emotional priority there. So naturally, women will often be heard to say that I have, shouldered the burden of the emotional responsibility of my relationships, whether it was taking care of their relatives, taking care of their parents, taking care of their siblings, in their romantic partnership, being the caretaker, the partner slash parent. You will hear women talk about it more. There are men that have done that, but it's the imbalance is different. And with men, the projection is to financially be responsible, right? Emotional responsibility is usually not a priority that men are taught to have. And I'll talk about that in a later episode in terms of like men and safety with one another, because that's something I've been chewing on and I haven't felt ready. It's still in the oven, but that's something I really want to talk about. But, you hear a person say, I was showing up for everyone, or I show up for everyone and no one shows up for me in return. So now I'm lonely, I'm bitter, resentful, I don't trust anybody. There's no such thing as friendship, da 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 da. So now I just got me, myself, and I. And it's like, let's slow that down, because there might be some things that we are missing in that process. For me specifically, I've been toying with this realization. I was looking at the historic evidence of my relationships, and I was like, what have they required? When I say relationships, I mean friendships, I mean partnerships, I mean family, whatever. What is it required of me to be present? And I realized being the emotional anchor, take care of everyone and still take care of yourself. Right? And a lot of times we try to glorify hyper independence, that should be the way to go. Never need anything from anybody, whatever the case may be. But here's the deal. If you create that system and everybody is moving the same way, then now we are bumping up against each other. And while we all desire connection, we are telling ourselves and telling other people you shouldn't seek it, right? So you create dysfunction in a society that thrives and grows on connection. Okay, and then we have codependency, which is the entire opposite side of the spectrum, right? Balanced relationships are becoming such this anomaly because we don't know how to, one, show up for each other, because we don't even know how to show up for ourselves, right? So there's this hyper independent energy that moves through a lot of relationships, or just hyper individualism, where, to desire connection, you're needy. You're creepy, you're desperate, whatever. So play the games, right? Be hard to get, don't really invest in people, let people chase you and all these other. And it's whack, honestly, because everybody's suffering. Everybody's suffering, and no one is really developing as an adult. Okay. So hyper independence mixed with over functioning in relationships and being low maintenance, right? That was usually my trinity. Very self-sufficient, very self-sufficient. And because of that, my own self-sufficiency, how a person does one thing is how they do everything. So my own self-sufficiency was showing up in my other relationships, where I was treating people the way I treat myself. Doing everything, right? My ability to do everything, I was also doing that for other people. And sometimes they didn't ask for it. Doesn't mean they didn't benefit from it. And then that turns into being low maintenance, because if I'm always meeting my needs before anyone else has the opportunity to do so, I never get to understand the truth of my relationships. Okay? A lot of times you train people to experience you without responsibility. And we don't always realize that. We think that people are just taking advantage, taking us for granted, insert whatever. and we are always the victim of circumstance, right? We keep finding these emotionally unavailable people. We keep doing this, yada, yada, yada. But here's the truth. If you are hyper independent, if you are emotionally unavailable, you will seek out relationships consciously, usually subconsciously, with people who you don't have to answer to, and you can kind of control the narrative. So if you are hyper independent, more often than not, you are going to exist in relationships where you can kind of control the narrative, where you can give. And because you're giving, you're keeping people at a distance. You're giving people something to play with. If they're distracted with whatever you give them, then they never have to step inside your space, and you never have to relinquish any kind of control, right? It's not always malicious, but it is a structure and it is a standard that we create. Okay. If you continue to choose emotionally unavailable people, right? It's not just them being emotionally unavailable, it's also you. Because if you're available for your own experiences and emotions, you will recognize that, hey, chasing this person or these people does not feel good. It actually disrupts me in a big way, and I don't like it. Let me pause. And yeah, it might feel comfortable because I might feel like I'm alone or I'm doing something wrong, but I'd rather this than that, right? So a lot of times what we project as other people being emotionally unavailable is like, in order for the relationship to exist with that kind of person, you need to be emotionally abandoning yourself too. But again, since we show up that we are taking care of this person, that we are trying so hard, we are doing this, it gives us a moral superiority. It keeps us in this space of comfort that, hey, look, see, I'm the good one, right? And being low maintenance, screw that. Like, let's throw that out. No relationship functions on low maintenance, okay? This isn't to say that you're demanding, you're controlling, you're manipulative, because that's very different. There are some people who are very controlling in their relationships. Friendships too, very manipulative. You know, there are some people who use boundaries to shield the fact that they are breadcrumbing other people and controlling the dynamic of how the relationship works. And that's something that I've caught in my previous relationships. One thing I've always set with confusion in is somebody's like, oh yeah, well, I'm not on my phone all the time. Or yeah, I'm not a big texter, or I'm a poor texter, I'm a poor communicator. And it's like, okay, so what are you willing to do to take care of this relationship then? And that never comes, right? And then that becomes, well, your expectations are too high. You know, I've had people say that to me, and I was kind of stumped because I was like, well, so if you're never on your phone, you don't like to text, you're a bad texter, all I'm hearing is what you are not good at. I didn't hear what you were willing to show up as. And that leaves me to kind of always be waiting for when another person is going to be present, right? So whose terms does it work on? So when this person texts me or this person reaches out to me, I should be available. When I respond to them, I should expect 2 to 4 business years for them to get back to me, right? And that becomes the standard of the relationship. One person is always waiting for somebody else to show up, right? And that's controlling the dynamics, okay? But then there's something else that happens, right? Let's say that a person is, they say, yeah, you know, I'll need space for a little bit just to decompress, you know, just to take care of myself. And if you're the type of person that's always showing up for everybody else, you're compromising, you're doing this silent stuff, you're creating silent contracts, right? Where people don't know the sacrifices that you're making to be in relationship with them. You're just doing it. And what you realize is people are continuing to do what they need to do for themselves. So again, somebody can simply say, yeah, I just need space to recuperate, so I'll talk to you tomorrow. And it feels like a rejection. It's like, well, I don't need space. Am I doing something wrong? Or like, am I too much? Or, well, why aren't you showing up for me like I'm showing up for you? Right? And that feels offensive. It's like, well, oh, okay, well, that's how they want to be. Awesome, I'm going to take space too. And now it becomes a retaliation versus you realizing that, hey, did this person say they needed space for me, or did they say they needed space for themselves? Okay. And like I said, for me, historically, I looked at my connections. I looked at my connections and I was just doing a scan. And I was like, huh. A lot of the connections that I've had for an extended period of time required me to overfunction, overextend. But also, what I realized is I wasn't including myself in my relationships. And what that meant was like, yeah, I'm very good at being self-sustained, but also I'm very good at taking care of myself, which means that other people never had the responsibility to take care of me. And when it did require responsibility from them, a lot of times they took offense because they were so used to me not asking for anything. Okay. And a lot of times we won't ask for anything because, well, if I feel like I ask, then I'll be too much and then they'll probably leave. Sometimes you need to ask for what you need to see who you are dealing with. Okay. You need to establish boundaries. You need to have expectations, not demands, but expectations, right? You need to have a standard in terms of what relationship looks like. And you also need to have that standard for yourself. See, it's not always on other people to accommodate us if we are constantly excluding ourselves first. And then we project on other people not being considerate of us, right? How often have you given people the responsibility to consider you? By allowing them to exist around you. You may say, hey, you know what? I got to get this work thing done, or I got to just do something for myself. So I'm going to just check out for a little bit, but I'll check in with you when I'm back. Most people won't do that, right? You'll forego what you need in order to stay up later, in order to spend time with this person when they need it and only when they need it. And then you realize when this person is satiated in their space with you, they go off and still do their thing. And again, there is a difference between certain people who are self-centered and inconsiderate, but you have to really take a sobering look at your relationships. Some people are not doing that. They are just committing to themselves. They're allowing themselves to exist in the space with you. And you have allowed them to do that. But how often do you allow yourself to do it? And that is true honesty. See, a lot of times people aren't excluding us. People are not considering us. We're not considering ourselves. We're not allowing other people to show up in that space, right? So then the consequence becomes people don't check on you. People don't show up deeply. Relationships do feel one-sided. The reason why is because you've counted yourself out, right? And then resentment shows up. Resentment is a result of needs going unmet. You resent people for choosing themselves, but you've been abandoning yourself the whole time. It's not that this person's doing anything wrong. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. You yourself haven't been doing what you should be doing, which is choosing yourself a little bit more often. And truth be told, when we are in relationships of value, people don't leave. People want you to be okay. People want you to take care of yourself. And if you genuinely care about a person, that discomfort that you feel initially will subside once you understand what this person is saying. Hey, I'm not abandoning you. I'm just not abandoning myself. And the more I can show up for myself means the more I can show up for you better. Right? And when you do start showing up for yourself, you do stop abandoning yourself. There may be some people who have a problem with that. Like I've definitely heard people come back later and be like, oh, you changed, or, you know, this connection feels one-sided, or we don't talk anymore as much. And it's like, well, yeah, because I'm involving myself in the relationship now. You know, previously, they had free range to do what was best for them when it served them and only when it served them. That is somebody who only considers themselves in the relationship. But again, they were committing to themselves and their needs the entire time. I was just willing to acquiesce, right? But now I'm not doing that, so things feel imbalanced, right? Your relationships will either become healthier, they will always become healthier, but they will also become clear in terms of what it required for the relationship to exist. But you got to be a little bit more honest, right? See, a lot of times it's easy for us to say that people are leaving us out. People are not considering us. People are not showing up for us. But what's actually going on, right? So somebody may come into my life and be like, yeah, relationship felt one-sided, or it feels one-sided. But historically, they were not making the effort. I was, right? And now that I've adjusted, it feels weird because it's like, wait, what do you mean? All this time you have been willing to show up and now you're not? What is that? I'm offended. You can't expect people to show up for a version of you that doesn't exist. If you never express your needs, you don't create responsibility. And that's the thing. We have not allowed people the responsibility to show up for us. And if you're always minimizing your needs or you reject help or support, you are creating a system of abandonment that you say you don't want. So, show up scared. Be willing to say, hey, I need time to do this, or hey, can we hang out a little bit longer? Or, hey, I need you. And see what happens. But see, a lot of times we are not being honest with ourselves about what we've created. And it's so easy to say other people are not showing up for us. But what relationships do you continue to show up to, right? And how often do you exclude yourself to be perceived as good, caring, loving, loyal, right? Dependable, and sincere? There's no such thing as being a bleeding heart or a giver who abandons themselves in the process, because that is not honest love. Yeah, you may love people deeply, but what does an honest relationship with them actually look like? And how involved are you in it? So, think about that. Sometimes people have not excluded you. Sometimes people aren't even leaving you out. You haven't brought yourself into the relationship. And now people are adjusting to your absence, right? Your emotional absence, but your physical presence. So, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other by allowing other people to take care of you too. That's how you take care of your relationships. Give people responsibility. Allow people to adjust. Allow people to love up. And yeah, some relationships will change because you'll realize, yeah, the requirement for us to exist was you not having needs or them not having needs to be present for you, right? I don't think everybody listens to this is always on the receptive end of, being the offended. Sometimes we are the offenders, and it's important to take an objective look. Okay. But yeah, one of the best things I did was to start acknowledging that I have needs and speaking up on it, because my relationships got a little healthier and a lot more clearer. And some relationships didn't survive, and that's okay. They weren't meant to if I was going to be excluded from the process. Okay, so take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Take flight.